Hi again, folks. Andy here, carrying on with some CAD lessons for you intended for the engineering program at UPEI. So let's get started picking up where we left off. Now, what I'm working on with you right now is basically what I'm considering a deep dive into some of the tools and modeling skills. Bear with me for another couple of videos where we're going to make kind of useless things, and then we'll get into making some genuine practical stuff, probably similar to what your instructors are going to be asking you to do in the first year design course. So let's get started. Here we are where we left off in the last video. This wonky thing, I tried making some fillets and showing you some stuff. You know, I don't like that. So I'm going to delete it. And all I'm doing is I'm right-clicking on the part in the feature tree. This feature tree is really useful. And just, you'll see that there's the red X down here that says delete, like that. Now notice that when I deleted this last one, as opposed to the fillet, where I deleted it and there's nothing left over, when you delete one of the features that's sketch-driven, like this, it actually deletes everything except it saves the sketch, which is kind of nice sometimes. But in this case, I don't want the sketch. I can delete this revolution, this ring that I did, and it's gone. But because the sketch was this sketch, there's nothing left over. Now, what you think will happen if I delete this very first extrusion that I did? Now, if you look back at the videos, I created this first extrusion not by creating a sketch per se. I clicked the extruded boss base tool up here to start the process. If I go and, I can rename it as well. If I go and delete it, it's gone, but the sketch that I created is still there. Really fundamental to realize that Solidworks and many other solid modeling tools, Autodesk Inventor, which is comparable, Creo, and there's a bunch of others, are history-based, sketch-driven type tools, very similar to this. These are often called parametric modeling, and you basically can change the parameters of the sketch, and that changes the model. There are other types of modeling tools, particularly NX and Solid Edge, which have a different sort of paradigm, and they're better or worse in different applications. However, we're learning SolidWorks. Once you learn this method, then you can jump into other approaches as well. Onshape, for instance, an online tool, also uses a similar kind of paradigm for sketch-driven stuff. So what that means is there's a lot going on with the sketch. Now, we could just ignore the sketch, and I could create an entirely new part. Now, because I don't have anything that I can select, I just press the extrude button. You'll notice that up here in the interface, there's kind of appears an icon, which is the object that you're working on. If I click the expand arrow, then that gives me the planes that are there currently, and I can pick any of those planes on which to start a new sketch. Now you see the new sketch that I haven't finished yet is shown below that bar on the feature tree, which indicates that it's not implemented yet, it's not done. Also, I can go to this view window, and I can still select which plane I want to look on. Now there's no object there, so it's kind of hard to tell what we're looking at. So I'm just going to get out of that. And it kicked me out of the sketch that I was creating as well. So let me try that again. I'm just going to go and without creating from a sketch, I'm just going to start a new object on the front plane and I'll just draw a random rectangle. Notice that it's drawing it in this invisible plane that I can't see. And I'll just extrude it. Bam. It's created a sketch, or the sketch I created is there. If I want to go and do another extrusion, I have to pick another plane to work on. Maybe I want to start on that plane. I can pick another square and I can extrude it. The fact that these are disconnected is kind of funny because really SolidWorks part functions are intended for a solid part that's connected. And it sometimes in different, more advanced tools, you'll find that it will tell you that there's different things that are disconnected. But regardless, you can do anything. It's pretty wide open. Each of these has essentially relied upon a different sketch. Now, as this gets bigger, these sketches are independent, and if I change one, which I can do here, maybe I make it like that, well, the other sketch, nothing happened with. So it's hard sometimes to think of making a really complicated device where you change one thing and other stuff doesn't change. And sometimes you want that and sometimes you don't. And especially if you're trying to make parts that are going to fit into other things, then you really need to think at the beginning for good modeling practice about how you're driving the geometry. It's all geometry. So I'm just going to delete these things that I started with. Even though I could randomly modify them and draw them, I'm just going to get rid of those things. I'm going to get rid of that sketch too, and that sketch. And so now the only thing I have left was this original sketch. I could have brought this in from some driving geometry for a mating part, for instance. If I've got dimensions from something that I'm really interested in, then I could just bring this dimension in a first sketch. The way I created this sketch, of course, was I selected the extruded boss base. You can also create a sketch over here on the tab that says sketch, and you see on the very left there's another icon for sketch, and you can make a new sketch. Either way, it'll give you exactly the same thing. So I'm looking at the sketch that I created, and I can actually select it and I can edit these features directly as they're shown. I'm using something called Rapid Sketch tool, which allows me to change the sketch on the fly. But what I really want to do is I want to edit the sketch. And so now I've opened that up for edit. You'll see whenever you're editing a sketch, and sometimes you get confused in SolidWorks as to where you are, wherever you're editing a sketch, you'll see that in the upper right-hand corner, there's the X to exit, leave, and discard the changes. That's helpful. Or there's the blue button, which is to accept the changes. That's also helpful. But I can put all kinds of detail in this sketch. Like, for instance, I didn't dimension where this cut hole was going to go before. And I should add that. So I'm going to select the circle, I'm going to select the edge, and it knows that I'm trying to tell it that I want this to be 5 millimeters from that edge. Now maybe I also want it to be some distance from that edge. And it's going from the center of the circle. I guess I could do that. I want that to be 6 millimeters. And now I'm going to draw another circle. Actually, no. Yeah, I'll draw another circle. And it's randomly circled, and this one is going to be 2 millimeter diameter, so it's a bit smaller. And I can now dimension the location of this, and whether I pick the center of the circle or the perimeter of the circle, it doesn't matter. SolidWorks assumes you want a dimension to the center. And it always finishes up the dimension command with something about the distance. I want that to be 15 millimeters. Now, if I grab this, actually what you'll find is by the mouse, as you can see with mine, there's a tool which shows that I'm in Dimension tool. And sometimes you want to get out of that. So if you click Escape a couple of times, it goes to just a select tool, and I can move this all over the place. Now the only thing I can't do is move it in the dimension that's defined. The dimensions are really helpful and really important in specifying things. There's other ways to do it, and I'll introduce that in the next video. So see you soon.